Hope you all rested well last night. No? Oh. I would recommend everyone should get some haldi, some turmeric, and gargle morning and evening with lukewarm water. If you haven't already started it, please start today, right after breakfast, and it'll help you pull on. How many of you are feeling physically down? Can you have raised it? Sorry?
Spiritually up, physically down.
Yeah. Physically down, just raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So maybe a hint to go a little slow. So that you still have to last a few days, yeah?
This is the geriatric ward next to the...
Yatras are always very strenuous, and especially since you're coming in from England and all of a sudden launching into this hectic schedule, so it's going to take its toll. You're not used to the pollution and the exertions of traveling so much. So it's anticipated that there will be some slowdown in the physical situation. But just make sure you get enough rest, sleep well, chant well, and enjoy your visit. As Govinda Prabhu said, physically down but spiritually up. Can we close the door, please? We don't want to cause a disturbance to the other guests here. Okay. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. A very good morning to everyone. Shubh Prabhat. I don't know if you've seen sunrises like this back in England. Right? So we've been here enjoying the spiritual atmosphere of Sri Udupi Dham, and we were discussing yesterday the glories of Sri Madhvacharya at his home in Pajaka Kshetra, and before that yesterday over here we were speaking about the glories of Udupi Dham. So today we'll continue with the glories of Madhvacharya, leading up to the point just before the time when he discovered and installed the deities of Balakrishna. So we'll leave that katha for the afternoon when we go there. We're going this morning to Krishna temple and we'll have some katha there, right? Okay, so we'll leave that katha there. And by the way, just on because in UK you give so much importance to health and safety. Yes, everywhere there's health and safety. So I would suggest that you don't keep the air conditioning very strong in your rooms and also in the bus. Because one thing that really gets you down in your throat, etc., is the sharp contrast in the temperatures. You come in from the heat and go straight into the heavy air conditioning, go out into the heat again. So that's what actually harms the body a lot. So keep the air conditioning low, meaning don't allow the temperature difference to be too much. So let the air conditioning be at a temperature that's just about reasonably comfortable, not cold, not England temperature, but something that's easily manageable and where the difference is not too much with the outside, okay? So a few small tips to not fall sick. And at the slightest hint of any irritation in the throat, gargle with a pinch of salt and turmeric. And do that as a preventive anyway, now that you are here. Hare Krishna. So now that we've got our health and safety preliminaries done, we'll get down to the real business of our visit here. Yes? So yesterday at Pajaka Kshetra we concluded our discussion with Madhvacharya, or Vasudev as he was known then, becoming inclined to take sannyas from Achyuta Preksha, and finally then taking sannyas. He had been earlier associating with Achyuta Preksha for a year. He had been visiting there frequently, spending more and more time, hearing the discourses. And even as he was hearing the discourses and he was being influenced by the path of renunciation, he didn't quite agree with everything that his to-be sannyas guru said, because his sannyas guru was more or less influenced by the path of Mayavada or Advaita Vedanta. So I think we are all familiar with the philosophy of Advaita. Advaita is a philosophy of monism or oneness, which advocates that we as the spirit souls are one with the Supreme, that in fact we are the Supreme. So there is a oneness, yes, but there is also a sharp distinction which the Advaitavadis don't recognize. Dvaita means two, duality. Advaita means non-dual, that means only one. So we are all one. Yes? So we have the philosophy of Shunyavad in Buddhism. Shunyavad, Shunya means zero. That means nothing exists. Yes? Actually everything is an illusion. That's the philosophy of Buddhism. There is no body, there is no soul, there is no material world, there is no Brahman, there is no spiritual world, there is nothing. It's all Shunya. So a small mathematics lesson before we come on. So Buddhism starts with zero. Then came Shankaracharya to refute Buddhism and reclaim the position of the Vedic teachings in the society. So he said, no, it's not zero, it's one. Number one. So what is that one? We are all one. We are all one. We are one with the Supreme and we are all one with each other. There is no distinction at all. And that was not very satisfactory at all. Neither Shunyavad nor Advaitavad was suitable. So Madhvacharya was hearing this monistic philosophy from Advaita Prakash because that was the prevalent philosophy at that time. The philosophy of Vaishnavism had kind of faded away somewhere in history and it was not so well known. So Madhvacharya, he would, even at that young age, when he was barely 9, 10, 11 years old, would contest the statements made by his guru. And he would say, no, it's like this, it should not be like that. And he would propound what he called later as the Dvaita philosophy. Dvaita means duality, two. That the soul and Lord Hari are two distinct, separate entities. You cannot call the Jiva as a supreme. The Jiva is eternally separate, distinct. It is very tiny. And Hari is infinitely powerful. He is a person. That's the distinction between Vaishnavism and non-Vaishnavism. In Vaishnavism, we understand that the Lord is a person. The transcendental personhood of God is one of the fundamental cornerstones of Vaishnava philosophy. That the Supreme Absolute Truth or God is a person. Whereas the Advaitavadis or the Mayavadis, they don't accept that. They think that ultimately the absolute truth is impersonal. That the absolute doesn't have a personality, doesn't have qualities, attributes, etc. So he said Dvaita. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came later and said, Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Simultaneously one and non-different. One and different. So anyway, this went on for some time. And Achyuta Preksha would express some interest because Madhva was only a child at that time, small boy, and still he was speaking such high philosophy and so eloquently, and he was so learned, naturally anyone would be impressed. And Achyuta Preksha was also quite impressed, and he wanted to know more from him. And actually at that time, Achyuta Preksha, being influenced by the Advaitavad and the varying philosophies that were prevalent, he was a little confused. So the deity of Ananteshwara, where we went yesterday, actually spoke to Achyuta Preksha and said that you are confused right now. But your confusions will be removed by someone who will become your disciple. And then he will actually liberate you from the cycle of birth and death and take you back to the spiritual world. So that's something quite astonishing. So sometimes the disciple can become the liberator and the deliverer of the guru. These are very exceptional circumstances, of course, very rare. But the principle, because Achyuta Preksha was not a Vaishnava, overtly at least at that time, he was still quite influenced by the Advaita philosophy of oneness. So in course of time, after giving him sannyas, he was called Purna Prajna Tirtha. Purna Prajna. Prajna means consciousness. Purna means complete. So one who is completely developed in his consciousness. So, but afterwards, when Achyuta Preksha realized the glory of Purna Prajna, and when this revelation came from the deity of Ananteshwar, so Achyuta Preksha now anointed Purna Prajna as the head of the monastery at that age of 10, 11 or 12, something like that. And he got the name Ananda Tirtha. So some very astonishing things about Madhvacharya from this very, very young age. So as time went on now, he began to preach, because that's what the Acharya is supposed to do. The Acharya has to preach far and wide. So he started preaching everywhere. He spoke the philosophy of Dvaita, and he refuted and contested. Yeah. Just close the door because there are other guests here, so yeah. So he contested the views of other dry logicians, Advaitavadis, and other speculative philosophers. And he defeated them one by one. There was a logician especially called Vasudev, also called Vasudev, but he wasn't a devotee of Vasudev. He was just a dry logician. And Ananda Tirtha defeated him and actually procured a victory certificate, a Vijaya Patra from him. That used to be the system in those days. These scholars would have these competitions, just like now you have these sporting competitions, Olympics and World Cups and so on. So there you had these intellectual debating competitions. And whoever won would take a victory certificate signed by the loser, that I submit defeat to such and such in debate. So you see, there was some intellectual honesty also in those days. There were set rules for debate. It wasn't like free for all like we see today in the television studios and when people talk with each other and discuss, where everyone just shouts at the top of their voice, and there's actually more heat than light in the whole discussion. Yes. And nobody really knows what's going on. There's no conclusion of anything. There's no one to moderate and to ascertain whether the truth has been revealed or not. But in those days, there were set rules, there were moderators for the discussion, and it was well acknowledged if somebody won or somebody lost. And then whoever lost had that intellectual honesty to submit to the victor. And he would sign, and often the loser would become the disciple of the victor. So this we see happening frequently, even in Gaur Leela with the Goswamis. We see that happening with Ramanuja, also with Madhva. So Madhvacharya procured this from Vasudeva, and also later he defeated other prominent logicians like Vadisimha, Buddhi Sagara, and he went on to Rameshwara. Rameshwaram, you all heard of it. That's also a place where you have a lot of Mayavadis. The influence of Shankaracharya's monistic philosophy is very strong in that area. So there too, he spoke about the philosophy of Vaishnavism. Then he went to Srirangam. Ramanuja predated Madhvacharya by a couple of centuries. So he went there, and after Srirangam, then he came to the banks of the Payaswini river in the modern day state of Kerala and southern Karnataka. We are now in southern Karnataka, by the way, southwest Karnataka, state of India. And there he spoke elaborately on Vaishnava philosophy, and he defeated all the Smartas and Mayavadis. Smartas are those who are more ritualistically inclined. They're not so philosophical, and very often they also lean towards impersonalistic conclusions, Advaita Vedanta conclusions. So after defeating all of these scholars assembled there, he got the title Sarvajna Yati. Yati refers to a renunciant or a sannyasi. Yati, that's a name for a sannyasi. Sarvajna means one who knows all. So it was a tribute to his erudition and his learning and scholarship that he got this. And he returned to Udupi. And by this time, remember, there's still no Krishna temple here, right? Balakrishna, the deity of Krishna, is not yet manifested in Udupi. There's only Chandramaulishwar temple, and there is the Ananteshwar temple, and there are the other ancient temples, like we went yesterday to the Durga temple on the Vimanagiri hill. Yes? So Madhvacharya used to speak very often, and people started getting attracted to his speeches, and they came and sat. And his own father would come also, and he would sit somewhere in the back, not being noticed. Because generally in those days, traditionally, sannyasis are not supposed to meet their parents. They were supposed to stay away. Actually, they weren't even supposed to stay in the same village as their parents. So parents were in Pajaka Kshetra. But the father would come and sometimes listen to the lectures of his son. And when he heard his son's lectures, he was also struck with wonder, and his heart swelled with pride. Then now he was finally happy. Naturally, he was a scholar. He knew the Vedas anyway. But when he saw these philosophical conclusions being spoken in such an eloquent manner and with so much clarity by his son, who brought out the philosophy of devotion that was there enshrined in the scriptures. And Madhvacharya's father, Madhyageha Bhatta, was also a devotee. So he became extremely happy. So in any case, time went on like this, and Madhva's fame spread far and wide. And Achyuta Preksha, even though he was very impressed with Madhva's philosophy, he was quite influenced by him also, and he was very attached to him also, by the way. But still he was not totally convinced of the Vaishnava philosophy. And that is the power of this kind of philosophy. When you get influenced by that philosophy, it's very hard to come out of it. And I know of many people, once having been substantially exposed to Mayavada, it's very hard to come out, and these lingering doubts remain. I remember many years ago in the 90s, there was one very senior devotee, a Prabhupada disciple. We were chatting, we used to meet often in Mayapur, and then in the course of some of our discussions, he said, when I was very young in my teenage years, and a little later, before I got exposed to Srila Prabhupada's philosophy, I used to associate with Mayavadis. And I was really into it. And I was exposed to this for very long, for several years. And then when I met Srila Prabhupada and I heard from him and I read his books, I was very influenced and I became a Vaishnava. But still, those doubts sometimes linger in my heart. Can God really be a person? And he says, I have to struggle. I have to struggle to get that thing out of my mind, because I was exposed to it for so many years. And now when you hear that God is a person, it's not easy for me to accommodate that within my mind. So obviously he must have also been exposed to that in his previous life. That's why he got that exposure at a young age to that kind of philosophy. But he was also a devotee, obviously, because he got exposed to Vaishnava philosophy, and he met an Acharya and a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. So there's mix. Very often you find mixtures of philosophies in people's heads. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not easy. So better not to hear lectures and philosophy spoken by those who are impersonalistic in their belief system. Therefore, Mahaprabhu has cautioned, Mayavadi bhasha shunile hoy sarvanash, that if one hears Mayavad philosophy, one's devotion can be destroyed. So it's not all one, as the Mayavadis would have us believe, that any philosophy, any path can lead us to the ultimate destination. And that's just not the truth. So anyway, Achyuta Preksha, despite being such a strict renunciant and having control of his senses and everything like that, but still he harbored this doubt. And finally he told Ananda Tirtha that, look, if you really want to convince me and others around me, then you will have to do what other Acharyas have done to establish their bona fides, which is you'll have to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Every bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya is not considered a Sampradaya unless they write a commentary, an authorized commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So the Vedanta Sutra, as you know, are aphorisms. You know what aphorisms are? Very short sayings. And they are distilled conclusions of all the Vedic teachings. So they said, you have to write a commentary on the Vedanta. Then we can accept your teaching, and then maybe I'll get totally convinced. So Madhva said, all right. But in order to do that, he felt the need to get the blessings of some very exalted souls. So he embarked on the journey all the way from Udupi to Badrinath, way up in the Himalayas. It's a long journey. This is in South India, and that is way up in the northern reaches of the Himalayas. And there were no airplanes and trains and cars in those days. They just walked. So there was a group of disciples and who accompanied him, and he wanted to go and meet Vyasadeva in Badrikashram, because that is where Vyasadeva resides, even till today. He is there today. Of course, we can't see him because we don't have the eyes to see him. So he went there with the idea of getting the blessings of Vyasadeva so that he could be empowered to then write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So his disciples had a hard time keeping up with him. Remember that he was Vayudev's incarnation, and he was very powerful, and he could actually move like the wind. And he walked very fast. Only out of mercy for his disciples did he sometimes slow down so they could keep up with him. But anyway, somehow or the other, they reached Badrinath. Now, you see, most of these holy places, and even those, including those in the Himalayas, have two sides to them. One is a side that is available to the vision of ordinary souls like us, which we can have access to, the physical dham, which is also spiritual, and it definitely influences our consciousness to a great deal. It's very inspirational being even in that external manifestation of the holy dham. But there is also an internal dham which one can gain access to only when one is eligible for it. It's not available for anyone and everyone. And furthermore, in Badrinath, there is the lower Badri and the higher Badrinath. So the higher Badrinath is available or accessible only to certain souls. So Vyasadeva informed Madhvacharya that if you want to meet me, you'll have to come to the higher Badri, not the lower. Badri is a kind of a berry, it's a tree. Yes? And Badri, Vishal Badrinath is Lakshmi's name actually. And so Vishnu is Badrinath, the Lord of Badri or Lakshmi. So Lakshmi Devi was there, or is there rather. So then he told his disciples, look, I have to go further into the Himalayas. There's snow and high mountains, and there's no way you can accompany me there. You won't be able to make it. So you better stay on in the lower Badrinath, and I'll go there, get the blessings of my Guru Vyasadeva, and I'll be back. Now all the disciples were extremely concerned because they said, going into the higher Badrinath, we don't know when our Guru will come back, what will happen to him. It's such a perilous journey there. But of course, on the other hand, they also knew his powers. But one of his disciples, Satyatirtha, he insisted on accompanying him just for being able to serve his Guru. But of course, Madhvacharya didn't need any protection or service. So as they started moving up, the snow was getting thicker and thicker, and it was getting colder and colder, and the oxygen is getting rarefied, and they were moving higher and higher into the Himalayas, and Satyatirtha was having a really hard time moving on. But Madhvacharya was just going on and on and on at a rapid pace. And he was looking back and he saw Satyatirtha fumbling and stumbling and falling into the snow way back. And then Madhvacharya, just with a wave of his hand, it is said, he just sent Satyatirtha back to Lower Badrinath. It's not that Satyatirtha like physically flew and you could see him flying like a bird. When that wave of hand happened, then Satyatirtha just found himself in Lower Badrinath again. It just happened like that. And that's how Satyatirtha describes it. So then he went on, Madhvacharya. He went up to the higher Badrinath, and there he met Srila Vyasadeva. He offered his humble obeisances to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva embraced him, and they sat and discussed philosophy for a long time. And he also had his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, which he had written, Madhvacharya. And he wanted to present that to Vyasadeva and also to Lord Narayan. You know, in Badrinath, you have Lord Vishnu as Badrinath, who lives there in the famous temple. And you also have a lot of other great personalities, including the Lord there. Uddhava also came there after he was instructed by Krishna, subsequent to his departure. So there is also Nara-Narayana rishis who stay there. There are two peaks there called Nara-Narayana. So then he wanted to meet Narayan as well. Lord Narayan was there. So after discussing this philosophy, Vyasadeva said, come, I'll take you to meet Lord Narayan. And Madhvacharya was very happy to go with Vyasadeva and have darshan of the Supreme Lord Narayan himself in Badrinath. And there both Vyasadeva and Lord Narayan explained the intricacies of the philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra to Madhvacharya and empowered him to write an authentic commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And then having offered his obeisances and taken the blessings of Vyasadeva, who was a literary incarnation of the Lord, and also of Lord Narayan, he came back to the lower Badrinath. His disciples were overjoyed to see him, and at that place he composed and dictated the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is called the Purna Prajna Bhashya. Bhashya refers to a commentary. Purna Prajna was his sannyas name. So that commentary on the Vedanta Sutra was called Purna Prajna Bhashya. Actually, Madhvacharya has written several commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra. So anyway, Madhvacharya composed the Purna Prajna Bhashya and he dictated that to Satyatirtha. Satyatirtha then put it down and then they returned to South India. Ramanujacharya, the great Acharya from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, also had a very momentous journey to Badrinath and to other places in the Himalayas. But that's a narration for another day. And he also got some nice scriptures and some books from there. And he also came back. He also performed some miraculous acts. Actually, on many occasions, Madhvacharya, his pastimes have been narrated in detail in Madhva Vijay by the son of one of his disciples. And that contains a description of so many pastimes, extraordinary, stupendous pastimes of Madhvacharya, like how he once saved his disciple Satyatirtha from the attack of a tiger. And physically, Madhvacharya restrained the tiger and the tiger fled. Then there are other descriptions. We heard about his physical prowess yesterday and about his appetite. After all, he is Bhima's brother. So Bhima is known for a voracious appetite. So one time I think he ate thousands of bananas and also had some other kind of kheer and some things like that and no issue of indigestion. And he was quite happily going on. So anyway, these extraordinary acts were performed by Madhvacharya, which obviously cannot be imitated by anybody. So after the sojourn at Badrinath, which was very, very productive, and all the disciples were struck with wonder to see all these things happening there, now Madhvacharya resumed his journey back to South India. On the way, they halted on the banks of the Godavari river. You know, there are many sacred rivers in India, and the Godavari is also one amongst them. In fact, after the Ganga and Yamuna and Saraswati, you have the Godavari. How many of you do any worship of the deities? Only few. So you know the mantra that you chant for, when you chant the Achaman, you want to make the water into the water of the holy rivers. You invite the holy rivers to come. Gangecha, Yamunecha iva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmade, Sindho, Kaveri, Jalismin, Sannidhim, Kuru. So you invite these 7 holy rivers. So Gangecha, Yamunecha iva, Godavari, Saraswati. So right after Ganga and Yamuna, you have Godavari. So the Godavari is a Dakshin Ganga. It is a southern Ganga, non-different from Ganga. Beautiful pastimes connected to Godavari also. She emanates from today Nasik. I believe you're going to Nasik. Yes? So it's a long journey you have ahead. from here to Gokarna, and then Belgaum, and then Kolhapur, and Pandharpur, and then Nasik, Mumbai. So all of you should take care of your health, by the way. Drink some Ganga Jal also to keep healthy. Yes? Go slow. Okay? So in Nasik you'll hear about the Godavari, the origin of the Godavari river there. So anyway, at some point, Madhvacharya, on his journey back to South India, on the banks of the Godavari, he had this debate with a great scholar called Shobhana Bhatta. Shobhana Bhatta was reputed as a man of great erudition, and they had discussions for a long time. And Madhvacharya showed him his Purna Prajna Bhashya, his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And he was so deeply influenced by that he accepted that whole philosophy in toto, and he became the disciple of Madhvacharya. So you see, this is the way that great Acharyas in the past preached. They brought into their fold big scholars who had large following. So when these scholars who were well known and reputed and who had large following became his followers, naturally their followers also became his followers. They also followed in the footsteps of their gurus, just like with Prakashananda Saraswati in Vanaras when he was transformed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally. So anyway, Shobhana Bhatta was a real powerful scholar, but he was completely captivated by the teachings and personality of Madhvacharya. So he actually took initiation from Madhvacharya, and he got the name into sannyas, by the way, and he got the name Padmanabha Tirtha. So you have all these sannyas names like Tirtha, Purna Pragya Tirtha, Ananda Tirtha, Padmanabha Tirtha. So there are such Saraswati, Tirtha, etc. These are sannyas titles. So anyway, and many others like this also came along. And upon return to Udupi, then he sat with Achyuta Preksha, and he discussed these philosophies, and he presented his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And Achyuta Preksha and many others like him also became followers of Madhvacharya. How astonishing. The Guru becomes the disciple of the disciple. Yes? But as I said, these are very, very extraordinary and exceptional cases. Achyuta Preksha was not overtly a Vaishnava, as I said earlier, but even when cases where a Vaishnava Guru can have an exceptional disciple who is so exalted that he delivers even that Guru, that's something truly extraordinary. And such a Guru is blessed to have such a disciple. But ordinarily, of course, one surrenders to a spiritual master, and the spiritual master, or the spiritual masters in plural, then they deliver us from the cycle of birth and death. So Madhvacharya now he had this pan-India presence. He was known everywhere in South India. Now he was known in the northern part of the country as well. And as I said, Achyuta Preksha had become very attached to Madhvacharya even before his Badrinath trip. And one day, before his Badrinath trip, Madhvacharya expressed the desire to Achyuta Preksha to go to Varanasi to bathe in the holy Ganga river. So Achyuta Preksha, even though he was not totally convinced with Madhva's philosophy, he was very attached to Madhva and didn't want Madhva to be going away for such a long period. He said, Madhva, I want you to be here. I don't want you to be away for so many days from me. So then, he was in a dilemma, what to do. Madhvacharya was also thinking, I want to go and bathe there, but my Guru says, I should remain here. So then Ananteshwar the Lord Ananteshwar, he spoke to Achyuta Preksha and says, not to worry, there is this Ananteshwar Sarovar, the small kund. And in this kund, you will see some bubbling coming up, and there you can understand it is the heavenly Ganga that is entering into these waters. And now they actually saw that happening, and Ananteshwar declared that this Sarovar, this kund, this small pond is actually filled with the water of the holy Ganga. It is not different from Ganga. So now that this is directly the Ganga, there is going to be no need for Purna Pragya or Ananda Tirtha to go all the way to Varanasi to bathe in the Ganga, because the Ganga has arrived right here. So then Madhvacharya was also very happy. He bathed there. There was no need for him to go to Varanasi to bathe in the Ganga. And that kund today is called the Madhva Sarovar. We went there yesterday in the temple. Okay. Of course, when Madhvacharya went to Badrinath, obviously he bathed in the Alakananda, the Ganga river there. In Badrinath also you have the holy rivers coming down. So Madhvacharya was now well established. He was still young, mind you. He wasn't that old at all. And so he had established himself as the preeminent Acharya in this part of the world, or this part of the country. And lots of people became his followers. And at the same time, Lord Krishna had not advented in the form of his deity in Udupi. And that was yet to happen. And if you want to know how Lord Krishna's deity actually appeared and manifested in Udupi, then you will have to join us after breakfast and after our visit to the Udupi temple, when we meet in one of the mathas there. So, in keeping with our philosophy of life, that a hungry person is an angry person, we will halt the session here and we will proceed for breakfast. Yes? Questions? Yes.
I have a few minutes. If you have any questions you'd like to ask. What you learned today, what you learned yesterday. No questions, maybe one or two things.
Everyone is just fully satiated and satisfied with the mercy of Lord Krishna and Madhvacharya's mercy and Ananteshwar. That is the power of the Dham. Yes, Govinda Prabhu.
As you mentioned, Madhva became the guru of his guru. Should we just understand that this was like an etiquette that the guru, even kind of the guru was taking Madhva as a disciple, just a matter of purely etiquette, wasn't anything more than that, because it doesn't make any sense at all otherwise. And would Madhva continue to kind of bow down to his guru, or would the guru bow down to Madhva? I mean, how would it work?
Well, as I said, this was an extraordinary situation, and we need to keep in mind that when Madhva took sannyas diksha from Achyuta Preksha, Vaishnavism wasn't really that prevalent in this part of the country. So monism or Advaita was the dominant philosophy here. So Achyuta Preksha also followed the Advaita philosophy of monism. But because that was the way to get sannyas, there was no Vaishnava sannyasis here at that time. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also took sannyas from Keshava Bharati, and he was from the Bharati Sampradaya of the Shankara Sampradaya. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, when he took the sannyas mantra from him, he actually told his guru, is this the mantra you want to tell me? And he actually initiated his guru into that sannyas mantra. So so he became a Vaishnava, Keshav Bharati, and then he gave sannyas to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in that sense, you can say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took Vaishnava sannyas, but actually he took it from Keshav Bharati. So at that time, there was no Vaishnava sannyasi available here. And he needed to take sannyas, so he took it from Achyuta Preksha. And Achyuta Preksha himself was influenced by the Advaita philosophy. So therefore, when we say that the Guru became the disciple of the disciple, we need to see it in this context, that the Guru was not a Vaishnava, at least overtly not so. This is a pastime, but at that time he was not a Vaishnava. And it took a while for him to become fully convinced with the Vaishnava Siddhanta as enunciated by Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya, being a very cultured Brahmin and a devotee and humble at heart, always offered his obeisances to Achyuta Preksha. And Achyuta Preksha, yes, as a matter of duty, would perform his duties as a guru is supposed to do for his disciple. But of course, he learned everything in terms of the true devotional conclusions from his disciple Purna Pragya or Ananda Tirtha. Now, whether he also offered his obeisances to his own disciple, that we don't know. He could have. Yes.
I was reading Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, written by Bhakti Rasamrita, and in that it was explained, maybe you can elaborate, I find it quite interesting. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was saying the followers of Madhva, they worship Madhva as Bhagavan, whereas we worship Madhva as devotee of Bhagavan. So is this in the Udupi, people see Madhva as God himself?
So do the followers of Madhvacharya see Madhva as God? No. Very clear understanding of who is Madhva and who is Hari or God is one of the cornerstones of their philosophy. Hari Sarvottama, Vayu Jivottama. Uttama means the topmost. So Hari Sarvottama, Sarva means all. So Hari is the topmost of all, cutting across all categories. And Vayu, Vayudev, is the topmost Jiva. That's the Madhva philosophy. Okay? So Vayu Jivottama. Jiva, the topmost Jiva is Vayu. And Vayu has come as Hanuman, Vayu has come as Bhima, Vayu has come as Madhvacharya. So they're very clear that Madhvacharya is a Jiva and he is an incarnation or an expansion of Vayudev. So he's not God, he's not Hari, not Vishnu, but he is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Okay? Yes.
Here we're hearing so much about Madhvacharya, who's definitely
Madhvacharya.
Definitely one of the acharyas in our line. I wonder if you can please say something about the importance that we should give to a predecessor acharya, and at the same time, because in our lives we only see the immediate people who affect our lives, and we may really highly regard those personalities. So maybe just understanding or finding the etiquette of balance between also giving that respect to those predecessor acharyas, even though we have no real connection in that sense, in a material sense with them.
Okay, so the question is regarding how we can offer proper due respect to our predecessor acharyas with whom we are not in active contact. We see our own sampradaya, Gaudiya sampradaya, although Gaudiya is also connected to Madhva, and they're not so visible for us in our daily devotional life. So how should we see these predecessor acharyas? We should see them in the way that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has told us, that we should respect all the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, and specifically because we are connected to Srila Madhvacharya Sampradaya, therefore we also consider him to be our Sampradaya Acharya of the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. Now, Gaudiya Sampradaya actually starts not with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but with Madhavendra Puri. Mahaprabhu's guru was Ishwar Puri. Ishwar Puri's guru was Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri got initiated by Lakshmipati Tirtha, so who was a Madhva sannyasi. So that is where the connection to the Madhva line comes. So our parampara itself is connected through Madhvacharya all the way back to Krishna. So we keep that in mind when we think about our predecessor Acharyas, because a sampradaya or a parampara doesn't just come out of the blue. There is a sequence that comes all the way from Krishna step by step through various personalities. That's the Guru Shishya Parampara. And there are multiple personalities through whom that knowledge is being transmitted. So without the predecessor Acharyas, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have this knowledge available to us. And also, in terms of philosophy, you see, Baladev Vidyabhushan was also from this, connected to this sampradaya, but then he took shiksha from our Gaudiya Acharyas, from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So his Prameya Ratnavali, the 9 important conclusions are borrowed from Madhva's philosophy, which he developed. And then Bhakti Vinod Thakur also took it further as Dashamula Tattva, 10 tattvas, yes? So we owe a lot to the philosophy of Madhvacharya also. In another, to take a small philosophical point here also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he connected himself to the Madhva Sampradaya, actually is like a unique Sampradaya in itself, in a sense. But he took 2 points from each of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. And from the Madhva Sampradaya, he took 2 points. One, the refutation of Mayavada, which we spoke about during the talk. And the second was accepting the deity of Krishna as being non-different from Krishna, the absolute nature of the deity of Krishna. So they have a lot of emphasis on deity worship, as you've seen, the Madhvas here. So deity is absolute, non-different from Krishna. And also the refutation of Mayavada. So we can see the contribution that Madhvacharya has in our sampradaya. Okay? All right. Yes.
Krishna Maharaj, I think that if, while giving the lecture, like you told, not only like spiritual master, but in fact many spiritual masters are responsible for delivering disciples. Till now I was thinking like what a Diksha Guru is responsible for delivering the disciples. So if you can tell like who all personalities are responsible for that, like you mentioned spiritual masters.
Well, there is a Shiksha Gurus as well. There is a Diksha Guru. There are Shiksha Gurus. It's a process of deliverance that is not so simple in a sense. And the Guru Tattva ultimately delivers through the personality of our Diksha Guru, our Shiksha Gurus. And Srila Prabhupada is there also, prominently. So that is how the deliverance process takes place.
In this one, how does the Diksha Guru is so important?
Usually the Diksha Guru is the most prominent Shiksha Guru, generally, in the life of the devotee. And also the process of Diksha itself involves an emotion of faith and surrender in the mind of the disciple. So therefore that surrender and faith in an exalted personality and the qualifications of that exalted personality become a very powerful force in the deliverance of that jiva, that disciple. Okay? All right. Okay, so we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Srila Madhvacharya ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.